What's up, Thrashers? Welcome to another episode of the Talk Louder podcast, where we geek out on all things rock and roll. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Leave us your likes and comments. You can also leave likes and comments on Facebook. Follow us on iTunes and Spotify. Also Instagram at talklouder_podcast. And of course, our website, talklouderpodcast.com. I'm Metal Dave, along with my co-host, Jason McMaster. And today's guest is guitarist Blake Ibanez, who most of you will know from his time in the Texas thrash metal hardcore crossover band Powertrip. Wow, what a band. Sadly, a short-lived band, but we talked to Blake today about the many accomplishments they achieved in such a short time. What a powerful band. Great album called Nightmare Logic was their swan song in 2017. All the best elements of thrash, crossover, hardcore, just a real breath of fresh air. It reminds me, I told Blake in the episode, to me, it's the most impactful record since Kill 'Em All to my ears. I haven't been this excited over an album.
I think that anyone that has Kill 'Em All, who also has Exodus Bonded by Blood and Possessed Seven Churches, Nightmare Logic should be in between, sandwiched in between those two records in your collection. And if it's not, you need to look it up right now. You need to listen to it. I am a late bloomer, I will admit, to the discography of Powertrip, but it's easy to fall in love with what it is they have going because of the bands and records that I just mentioned.
Yeah.
The sound of the record, where they're going, they're creating something that they're wearing it on their sleeve. Obviously, they're creating something that mirrors some things that they've fallen in love with as far as thrash metal goes and early crossover stuff, like you're mentioning here. And it's great to hear it in his words and the things that they're into as a band. You already said this, the short-lived career, which I want to think positive and stay positive that it's not over yet. They're young guys, they're a young band, but the things that they've gotten to do, the accolades, the rubbing of elbows, the bills and festivals that they've gotten to share. I mean, they've played with their idols.
Yeah.
They've gotten great reviews and love from their idols, whether they be the originators of what it is that they do, or even, the newer ilk that they're competitors. I hate that word, but you know what I mean. They're contenders. Yes, they're contenders. Thank you.
Yes.
And I think that, with the unfortunate, losing Riley, their lead singer, in the middle of what could have been, they were peaking. They were starting to get to this place.
Yeah.
And it's like a Bon Scott. It's the same thing as a Bon Scott, but it's not over. But I think COVID might have been related to part of the grieving process, and we get to talk about that a little bit with him. I really like the guy a lot. We've done shows together, but I've never met him, and it was really great to hang with him on the podcast today and just get a little bit of insight of where he's coming from. And he's very intelligent and well-spoken and very heartfelt about everything he is and, and stands for.
Yeah, I got that too. Very well-spoken, very genuine. And going back to Powertrip, I think one of the things that resonates with me is they were able to capture they captured a certain sound, but I think what's more important and appealing to me is they captured a spirit, and that's so hard to do. And that's why I kind of liken the impact of that album Nightmare Logic to something like Kill 'Em All. I haven't been that excited since an album of that type came out in all these years. And, as you mentioned, they, in a short time, they gained the respect of their peers. They even had a Grammy nomination, which is just crazy. And they really did Texas metal proud. I'll tell you that. They're based out of Texas. So yeah, unfortunately, a band that kind of had to hit the brakes at the peak of their powers. But as as Blake says, you never say never. So I wanted to thank him for joining us today, and he also was kind enough to indulge me and allow my son to step in at the end of the podcast and ask a few questions of his own. So
That
my
was
son,
fucking awesome, by the way.
yeah,
So here's the deal. If you guys have somebody that you want to have on the podcast and I'm MIA for whatever reason on the road or whatever, just bring him in. Just bring
have
him in.
Dash
His
do it.
hair is way better than mine anyway. So
Yeah, he had
was
a
awesome.
great time. Blake is one of his heroes. Dash loves Powertrip.
Awesome.
He wears his Powertrip shirt all the time, and anytime we go to a concert and he's wearing that shirt, which is almost every time we go to a concert, he gets 4 or 5 or 6 compliments, and he's just beaming ear to ear. He's a big Powertrip fan, and this meant the world to him to be able to join us today and speak directly to Blake. So.
Awesome. Well, Blake sent him a birthday wish, which I know that I saw. There's a video of Dash just like freaking out that when that happened, that I guess your wife made and and posted, whether Dash was aware of that or not. But you can just see raw emotion and true that shit was true.
Very exciting.
And I love it that your son. That's just good parenting. It's just good parenting. Obviously, Dash is a super kid, and I love the guy a lot. And he's not going to be he's not a baby anymore, and he's a rock fan, he's a metal fan, and you didn't push that on him, did you?
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. Love you, Dash. It was awesome having you in here.
Yeah,
today.
it was. Thanks, Dash. And so Blake, was kind enough to send a birthday greeting to my son on Instagram. And I told Blake in setting up this episode, I said, would it be too much trouble for my son to join us? And I said, he's a huge fan. And dude, if this could have happened to me when I was 14 years old, it'd be like talking to Gene Simmons. And Blake totally got it. And he was like,
of course,
dude, absolutely, man. So let's talk to Blake Ibanez.
Yeah, here we go. What did I miss?
We were just bringing Blake up to speed here, and I asked him if he was familiar with you and your background in Watchtower, and he said, of course, and said that he actually played on a bill with you in Austin when you were Igniter and Powertrip, and
it was not Powertrip. It was the other band, Eternal Champion.
Eternal Champion.
Yeah,
okay.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I like Eternal Champion and that whole movement. That kind of like Viking metal. I love all of that shit.
Yeah.
As well as Madonna. So it doesn't, I don't care. Stop right now. How much do you want for the Rose Tattoo shirt?
actually, are you in Austin?
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy that makes these shirts is in Austin. He's I forget, it's called Splattered Records. Have you heard of Splattered Records? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do like heavy metal reissues and stuff. They've reissued some new wave of British heavy metal 45s and stuff. I can send you guys. Yeah,
it's a bootleg.
Yeah. This guy just makes bootlegs, and then he also has a record label and stuff. So I think a friend sent me a link to it, and I bought one for me and one for my buddy. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Well, anyone who flies the Rose Tattoo flag knows what's up. It's like if Motorhead went country or something. It's really awesome.
So how often are you in Austin? Because, Jason, I don't know if I shared this with you, but my son Dash follows Blake on Instagram, and he noticed Blake posted a photo of a Thin Lizzy poster when featuring Gary Moore. It was when Gary Moore was in the band, and Dash brings his phone to me. Dash brings his phone to me, and he goes, "Dad, I think Blake was at End of an Ear, the record store here in Austin." And I said, "How do you know?" And he says, "I saw that same Thin Lizzy poster, and it has that red wall behind it. It's the same one that's at End of an Ear." And I was like, "Well, it's possible. I'll ask him, because we're going to do this podcast. So I sent Blake the email telling him about the podcast. And I said, by the way, were you at End of an Ear? And he's like, good eye, man. I was at End of an Ear. And so Dash was just like shocked that like one of his favorite guitar players was in his favorite record store, and they probably just barely missed each other because Dash is at that store once a week.
Well, where are you, Blake? Where are you? What planet are you calling from right now? Where are you?
I live in Fort Worth.
Yeah, that's what. Okay, so that's what I thought. I didn't want to just assume. So
yeah, I'm kind of all over the place. I mean, I go to Dallas a lot. Got a lot of family over there, friends, and go to Austin. I was going down to Austin a lot, doing some recording stuff for a little bit, and then I have some buddies down there. So actually, I was just down there for the day. I always go to End of an Ear and break away and stuff when I'm in town, just looking for records and stuff.
His other store.
Well, Dave, Dave, you can tell Dash that Blake just lives right up the road a couple hours. You guys just ding dong, Blake, surprise.
Get together for some tacos or something. Well, listen, Blake, let's wow. Why don't we just start from the beginning? Take us back to your childhood, when you started playing guitar. How old were you when you picked up the guitar? Who were your inspirations? Did you come from a musical family? How did you get started on this path?
Well, I probably got my first guitar when I was 9, maybe something like that, 8 or 9. And I think I got my first electric guitar when I was 10. So I think I just, a kind of musical family. I have some cousins that were songwriters and stuff. My parents, they're into music, but they're not musicians or anything. My dad's, he kind of brought me up listening to a lot of stuff. He's 60. He actually tomorrow turns 66. So
happy birthday.
The Beatles, Beatles and Hendrix and Beach Boys, Birds, and stuff like that. So I kind of always, I think Jimi Hendrix was probably my first inspiration, just because I think of obvious reasons. It's you want to play guitar, listen to this. So that was probably my first big influence. And then, I started playing. I got some lessons for a little while. Just learning. I mean, I used to know how to read music, but I totally lost that. But I took some lessons for a bit. And then at some point, I think once I started to be able to hear the notes and make them out myself, I just kind of just started learning songs myself, learning chord progressions and, chord movements, riffs and all that, just kind of deconstructing it. And then once you kind of learn the general idea, then you can start, changing stuff around and trying to write your own stuff. So
sounds familiar.
Yeah, that's the name of the game. It's nothing too crazy, but you just got to try your best with what you know. And so I pretty much just threw everything out at one point and just started learning everything myself and playing in bands and playing covers, stuff like that. So that's probably how it started. But yeah. So
at what point did you were you bitten by the thrash metal bug?
Well, I think I'm trying to think exactly when it was. I mean, I always liked Metallica and Slayer and stuff like that, but I think it was kind of when, we were all in the hardcore scene. We were in hardcore and punk. And then at some point there were some bands before us that were doing the crossover thing. And I think when we were able to see how punk and hardcore and metal came together, it was kind of like a gateway. Like, this is okay, or this is cool. Because I think you get into that sometimes when you're in a scene, you just want to stay in that. So it was like hardcore and punk, and that was all we wanted to listen to and do. But I think when we discovered the crossover thing, it sort of opened that door. It was like, no, metal is amazing too. And there's so much you can learn from both. And I think when the crossover thing came up, that was when we all sort of just dove right into thrash and metal too. So there was a band, I'm sure you've heard of, Iron Age, who, the singer of Iron Age is the singer of Eternal Champion. So we go back with those guys, but they probably started, I think, 3 years before we did. So they had kind of already been going and bringing that sound, I guess you could say, back, because there really weren't a whole lot of crossover bands in the scene at that point. And they sort of brought it back. and did it really well. It was really inspiring. So once they were doing their thing, they were kind of like our older brothers. It's just like we all were trying to discover records, and they were, you know, I mean, I even point back to it's kind of funny for, you know, you guys are older than me, but
thanks for pointing.
Remember, well, you know, I'm sure you remember the days of MySpace, you know, like the early social media. Well, the bands, you know, it was an interesting time to be our age, because that was kind of how you discovered new bands. And they would have like influence sections, and you know, with Iron Age and other bands in Texas, they would, you know, sometimes put a whole list of records, and it'll be like, you know, it would say Exodus, Bonded by Blood, and it might even say 1985 or whatever year it came out. So it was just kind of fun, because you would just, oh God, it was like, you know, I guess you could compare it to you guys looking through record booklets or, you know, LPs back in the day, looking at the thank you lists and, oh, who's that, you know, and going and trying to find a band.
Yeah,
and
we still do that.
We didn't know. We did that. We did that too. But this was so much more direct. It was like, this is the year. This is how you find it. So, you know, we'd go find stuff and tell each other about obscure band. It was just, you know, it was all about that. So that was kind of how we dove into the thrash thing. I
called that discovery. You know, you're in this like mind warp of like, oh fuck, oh man, I got to give me some of that and some of that, and then you're falling in love all over again with this thing that you want to do, that you have it's your bullseye, and it's, you want to, I think that's awesome. However you discover things that sort of fit what it is that you're doing already or looking to do, that scar you and become an influence, and you end up wearing that on your sleeve. I want to jump into, you know, starting at the beginning is awesome, but I want to push forward. We can always come back. Sure. First off, how old are you? Just so we get this out.
I'm 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're a child.
So, no matter how old I get, I'm always going to be I've always been the young one, you know, like I was, everybody in the band is probably, about 3 to 5 years older than me. So I was always, when we started, I was 16. So I was always the baby. But you know,
well, I feel
like I'm getting old. That's for sure.
Here's the deal. Somebody who's 30 years old and whose songwriting, in my opinion, well, it's probably not just my opinion. I hear, talking Powertrip, I hear all of the things about thrash that I look for when I start going, okay, this better be good before I put the needle in the groove or press play or however you take it. Yeah. And you mentioned Bonded by Blood. I want to say Seven Churches, Possessed.
Yeah. That was a big one too.
Yeah. And I hear it all over you guys' stuff. And I definitely hear, especially in Riley's approach, I hear the hardcore. I hear, and it could come, I won't mention hardcore bands, but it's coming from everywhere, from maybe even like DRI, Kurt from DRI, to, totally, you know, all the way to all the heavy metal, you know, the screamers, you know, Anselmo, I'll just stop there, you know, anything in between there. And Anselmo's into that too. But when you think about influence, and that's a different show, but you know, a lot of the singers who have some age on you guys, it was pre-hardcore. So they're, you know, extreme to us was when the first time we heard Hellbent for Leather, you know, by Priest. Exactly. And so when you look at it like that, and then you're looking for heavier and louder and higher and guttural and more monster, I feel like there's a lot of metal where, you know, list of your influences. Well, you know, all the monster voices on Evil Dead movie, those are my vocal influences, you know, that kind of burp and slurp kind of thing. You know, there's a lot of metal that has that shit. Yeah. But I think that where you guys are coming from a writing standpoint, it's like, and they're not even new anymore. Another one I would throw on the fire is Havoc out of Colorado. Yeah. And I think that they're coming from a lot of the same places that you guys are too. And they sound Bay Area. And I think there's a lot of Bay Area thrash going on with what you guys have going, obviously the Possessed and Exodus.
Yeah.
Is that about right? And when you form songs and riffs and you start out with your master riff, your intro, your main,
right.
You want it to be the hook immediately, whether it be part of the chorus or not. When you write, do you plan on coming for, I'll just call it the mosh part, where there's a time change in the middle and it's dragging a little bit for your bridge? Do you plan it that way, or, because it's coming from your influences? Because that's kind of that's the format of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's tough because, I mean, obviously we come from the hardcore scene. There's always, I think, a tendency for bands to stick the heavy part or the break at the end of the song. That's like a Bad Brains thing. They kind of, to me, invented that, right? The break at the end, which is great. But I think at some point, depending on what you're doing, it becomes a little predictable. If you're just strictly a hardcore band, I think that works really well. But I think we have some songs like that, but I think at some point I decided I wanted to try to write like a song to where it was more integrated into the song. So, and especially when you look at thrash, I'm into a lot of different music. And I think, especially writing the material I've written over the last few years, I think I overcomplicated it in my head a little bit. I was always trying to, how am I going to write this new way to write a thrash song and all this, or maybe not a new way, but for us, something new. But at the end of the day, you have to go back and just go look at the greatest bands, like you can't beat the Angel of Death structure. You can make something interesting with those parameters, but like, don't overcomplicate it. So for me, I kind of like putting them in the middle of the song, or, not quite at the end, something like that. It's good for the bridge because when you're playing fast, you want to break it up at some point with a tempo change, I think. And it just, sometimes you can get a little ahead of yourself trying to get too inventive with it. But I like the bridge, I would say, is kind of, you can either put a different part there, or for me, it was complicated because when I write by myself, I have to I hit that wall when I get to that point, and I have to I would prefer to be in a room with a drummer and whatever feet. Cause a lot of our, songs in the past, I might've had a skeleton or some of the main riffs, but then when me and Chris, our drummer, jam it out, the bridge just happened, and I always was aware that we want our songs to have bridges, but it wasn't so much a conscious, thing that we were like, okay, we're at the bridge, we got to do this. It was just sort of, he did a fill and we kept playing, and there was a bridge. So, but this time around, I was getting way more analytical and methodical about how to write and all this stuff, and definitely thinking more about bridges and listening to all, rock bands that I like and trying to figure out what they did, and probably getting a little, like I said, a little ahead of myself because it's heavy metal, but you can apply a lot of stuff. So I was able to finally circle around and kind of bring it all together, and just, so it was a good learning experience for me. It made it a little more difficult for a while, but I finally came back around like, okay, I think I can take what I learned from all this other music that I like and boil it down and just, not necessarily go by the book, but yeah.
One of the signature elements of the Powertrip sound in my mind is, and this kind of plays off of what you were just alluding to, is, first of all, the tightness of the guitars is just phenomenal, man. I mean, it's just the tightness of the band is phenomenal, but the guitars, the way you and Nick work together, and one of the things that stands out to me that makes you guys a little bit different is there's these weird little transitions, like when you're chugging along double picking, at 100 miles an hour, and then there's this weird like flick of the wrist transition that happens. It kind of catches you off guard, and you guys make it work so well. And I think that's one of these little signature elements that you have in your sound. If you're listening very closely and you're riding along, you're just cruising, and then there's some weird triple pick thing or something before you go into the next part. I'm not a guitar player, so my vocabulary is not not up to speed here.
You're
But I
doing
think
good,
you know
Dave.
what I'm
You're doing
saying.
good.
There's these little transitions that are real, like flick of the wrist, real quick, and they catch you off guard, but they add so much to the song. And because you guys are so tight, it works, you know?
Yeah.
Can you tell me about how you guys developed that? Is that a conscious is that a conscious way of playing to sort of separate yourselves, or is it just something that you throw in just to keep yourself interested?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so. I think a lot of those things generally happen is just part of the riff. You know what I mean? I think that's a really important part. You always that I think sometimes people overcomplicate, myself included. The tail of the riff is actually a really important part of a riff. So like sometimes I'll be writing and I'll write something that doesn't necessarily have a tail, as Lars Ulrich puts it, you know, a tail of a riff. But that's so important because that leads you to the next part.
Right.
And yeah, it can be sort of a hook in itself if you know, and yeah, I think that I don't really think we think about it. It's just sort of something that happened. It's probably just part of the riff. But yeah, a lot of that stuff, as much as I like to write by myself sometimes and write riffs that way, but when you're in the room and me and Chris, I think we feed off each other really well. You know, he has a great musical background, his like instincts and all that. And we all sort of came to where we are in kind of different ways, but similar, just sort of being into punk and metal and hardcore and all this stuff. And, you know, so a lot of his instincts inform stuff like that too, you know, like if he's playing along with me and he maybe does a transition and I'm just playing along to what he's doing. So, I
hear him play your riff or Nick's riff. I hear him play the guitar riff on the hats when you guys are moving along and you've established your intro or you're getting to where, you know, the band is about to be in full roar.
Yeah.
I hear him, you know, playing the riff with you on the hat.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens in maybe not 100% of the time, but it's happening a lot. So I feel like that's sort of part of, you know, part of the whole makeup of your sound is how he's working with you. He's playing the riff. I don't necessarily, I'm not dogging anybody out, but when the drummer is not playing the riff, the song is not as good as it could be when the drummer is like, what you're saying, you're basically telling me you don't know the riff and you're just going, you know, you're just playing time. Yeah. But Dave Lombardo plays the riff, Charlie Benanti plays the riff, Tom Hunting plays the riff. Every great thrash drummer, every great extreme drummer, you know, it plays the riff. Gary Holt writes that way with, like you're saying, the tail. I don't know if I've heard Lars say that, but it doesn't.
I think he said it. He said it at some point. It might have been a Howard Stern thing or so. I just remember hearing him say that, and I was like, that makes a lot of sense. You know?
He's not wrong. He's not
wrong. No. Yeah.
One of the we're talking about Lars here just in passing, but I've said this probably 100 times in the last year or so, and I'll say it again to a wider audience. I think for me personally, Nightmare Logic is the most impactful album I've heard since Kill 'Em All. And what I mean by that is, for my own personal taste, I haven't been excited about an album that captures that genre that well and that raw and that excitement the way that Nightmare Logic does. I don't remember being this excited about a record since Kill 'Em All. And I know there's been a lot of great thrash records that have come out since 1983 or whatever. Don't get me wrong. But I really like the fierceness of Nightmare Logic. I like that it's not full of double kick blast beats. I like the fact that it's raw. It's got that hardcore edge. And for me, I haven't been this excited about an album of that style since Kill 'Em All.
Wow.
And I'll stand by those words. It's a great record, man. You guys should really be proud of it. It took my head clean off when I first heard it.
That's fair. Wow. I'm just glad that there's fans like you, Dave, that say that. Like,
yeah, well, you know, I really appreciate you saying that. You know, I like I said, I mean, I'm proud of what we've done. I know.
Yeah, you should. You know,
there's a lot of great. Yeah, there's a lot of great.
Don't be afraid to be proud of that, because it's you know.
There's a lot of great music out there. There's been a lot of great bands. I mean, seem to think that we're the best at anything or what is it, but I think I could definitely see that there's something that we tapped into that I think just is missing, and whether it's in metal or what, because
well put.
yeah, I mean, like I said, there's been so many great bands and guitar players and drummers, and I'm not here to say that we're better than anybody. I just think that when I hear you say stuff like that, or other people, I've heard, sort of similar things that you said. And I think it's just like, and I've talked about this before, but it just seems like, especially in metal, there's something about, I think and I'm not that old, but the spirit of the original scene that kind of got lost at some point, obviously not with the older guys that were there and that, started the whole thing. But I think with younger people like us, coming at it the way we did, it was like hardcore punk, kind of in a way, like you look at Mustaine or Jeff Hanneman or those guys. I mean, they were listening to Discharge and GBH, and then they were even listening to Motorhead and Thin Lizzy and stuff. So that's what we listened to in the van. It was rock and roll and ZZ Top and Van Halen and all that stuff. And that was what we wanted to do in terms of, we wanted to write something immediate and that actually had some type of spirit to it, I think. And I think people get really wrapped up in metal and the mechanical and the technical proficiency, all that stuff, which is great, but it's like, I care way more about the feeling of it, So I think especially and a lot of it also comes down to who's singing, So like Riley definitely had an attitude that I think really came across. He was really into writing, and I think he took his writing really seriously, and he meant what he was saying. And so there's that too. I mean, I think if you attack it from that way, and that's where the hardcore comes in, I think the vocalists generally have something more to say than a lot of metal singers do sometimes. It's just the kind of more about fantasy and stuff like that, which is cool, and there's a place for it. A lot of people enjoy that, but I think with us, maybe we separated ourselves in the sense that we were coming more of like like rock and roll type thing, hardcore thing, where I guess you could say the rawness or the overall attitude, and even the double bass thing. I mean, that wasn't necessarily a conscious decision. It was just Chris was a punk drummer, and he didn't play double bass, so it was like, who gives a shit? You don't need it. Well, there's plenty of bands that do it, and it's great. I love how Dave Lombardo uses double bass and Igor Cavalera and stuff. I'm not super into it when it's really integral into the drummer, like every little movement is based on a double bass roll. I don't really like that very much, but long story short, I mean, I could see where you're coming from, and I really appreciate that. That's the way I see it. I'm not saying, we didn't reinvent anything or revolutionize anything, but I think there's a spirit that we maybe harnessed that isn't very common these days. So
right.
That's probably what resonates the most, maybe.
Yeah, I think you just nailed it. I think you are filling in a blank that's been left blank for about 30 years, to at least on a large scale. I'm sure there's probably bands in garages doing this all over the place, but you guys put out an album that reached people. And for my ears, I was like, oh my God, I haven't heard anything this raw and this street and this just fierce and in your face and tight since, Kill 'Em All. And, you're right. I don't, not to say that I think you reinvented the wheel, but I think you brought something back to the forefront that had kind of been pushed in the background, because metal as a genre, like you said, they start adding layers. So kind of what Jason was saying earlier, okay, the vocalist gets more scary, the blast beats get faster and faster and more. And then all of a sudden the spirit that we're talking about, that Powertrip sort of harnessed, is this kind of thing that was pushed into the background. And I think you guys brought it back to the forefront, and that's why it sounds so fresh to my ears. And I love it. That style of music is great, and I haven't heard it done as well since Kill 'Em All.
The old school thrash doesn't have blast beat double kicks on every other section. It doesn't have it, and it's coming from the crossover thing, like you're saying. It's coming from even Motorhead didn't have every song with double kick, and even Judas Priest. I mean, when you think about the classic the old guys, the originators of what it is, the reason we're all here. It wasn't about how fast the drummer was, how fast. Let's talk about that. Not every song that you guys do is a thrash song. Not everything goes. A lot of it is like a straight sort of moderately up tempo, but it's not, you know, dun 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 da, right?
Yeah.
And I think that adds to what we sort of roundtable here are sort of talking about when we talk about what it is you guys do. Production wise, I think that I have some questions about, you know, was it a group decision? Was Andy Sneap involved in the decision to not force or push the sound of the record to like a over reverbed, you know, okay, that's enough reverb. You know, were you going into you know, it sounded to me as if I could have been a fly on the wall, that maybe I'm going to get it all wrong as a fly on the wall, but it seems that you guys fell in love with a thing, and you're writing this incredible, powerful metal music, just for lack of better terminology, keeping it simple, and the tone of the record, the vibe of the record is very cohesive in the way all the things that we've been building up to until this moment, as far as the writing, but the sound of the record, the production on the record sounds like things that I fell in love with back in the day, as I could say. And was that a conscious decision to make the record sound like something maybe they, that reminds me of that, and it makes them get into your fucking record even more? Was that something you guys were looking to do?
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to make stuff that sounds like our favorite records from the past. I think we were trying to capture a vibe and a spirit. And, you know, I would say, like, it was kind of, especially our first record, you know, we were young. We didn't know exactly what we wanted to do. I think a lot of it was a reaction to the way things had been sounding in metal, you know, like, and I'm not saying that, you know, we did everything right, but it was a reaction to what we were hearing and what things were sounding like. And we're like, we're just going to totally flip this upside down and try to take it back. And I think over time we started refining it a little bit. And I think, you know, the next thing or whatever will be even a better version of that, because we're maturing as players and just even production wise, you know, as I get older, I'm definitely moving back into more of a classic recording, getting a little nerdy about that and all my favorite records. So, but to get back to that, we wanted to capture the essence of something that we love about those old records. And, you know, some people, I have older buddies that are probably around you guys' age, and some of them have a different opinion about that. You know,
I love how this keeps coming up.
Yeah, well, it's like, I was gonna say, it's like I'm only 9 years younger than your dad. So.
Yeah. So, but I think some people have different opinions about that sound and stuff. You know, I think some people look at it like, God, I wish all those records sounded better, and then other people are like, no, I love that's the sound. You know, so like I don't know what would happen if you you know, Master of Puppets or Ride the Lightning sounded different. I don't you can't, you know, there's part of you that's like, maybe it wouldn't be the same. I mean, the songs are the songs, but it's when you listen to that record, the feeling you get with the toms, you know, on Ride the Lightning and all that, you can't, I don't think you can look at it through the, you know, the prism of, is this a perfect record? I think it's the spirit they captured. And that's what matters, I think, when you're not making mainstream music, even though Metallica, it didn't matter. You know,
I don't know if there's like a forum of metalheads just in there, just, you know, chewing the fat about how floppy those toms sound on Whiplash or like you said, Ride the Lightning. You know, some of the toms sound a little whoopy and floppy.
but they sound, but it sounds real. It sounds like they were young dudes and they're playing the shit out of their instruments and they don't know the ins and outs of recording and what's going to sound perfect and what's not. They probably didn't, and clearly even in the early days, they didn't have the money to hire the big time guys to come in there and tune the drums perfectly. But through doing that, they captured this essence of what it was. So like the way those records sound, like Bonded by Blood and don't get me wrong, look, there's classic records that sound incredible, you know, I mean, Rain and Blood and incredible from maybe a more technical standpoint. Obviously Rust in Peace, you know, but those were big budget records with big producers, you know, but is something about the essence of the classic stuff that we all love, you know, and that we wouldn't change. So
Rain and Blood, I heard on Rain and Blood that they, you know, Jeff and Carrie, like what's his face, producer guy,
Rick Rubin.
Yeah, wouldn't let them put any pedals in between guitar, and it was like cable straight in. I heard it was just like stock 900s or 800s or something.
800s, yeah. I mean,
it was just and you can hear, if you listen to that record just today, tomorrow, you can, and you're really fucking listening, you can hear every note. And there's a couple songs, there's some couple flubby little notes, but that's what I love about it. And I'm not looking for the mistake they made. I'm not looking for that. I'm listening to the fucking songs.
Yeah.
But my point is how kind of dry the production is.
Yeah.
But it set a fucking standard by way of whether it was their idea or Rubin's idea to go back and make a record that didn't have a bunch of like fluff on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think they definitely wanted to capture the live feel of them playing, and I think I get more and more intrigued by the straight into the amp thing.
That's like AC/DC. AC/DC does that.
No frills.
Like, what the fuck?
That was, I believe, you know, from what I've heard, is what Rick Rubin was kind of trying to capture was with Rain and Blood and with a lot of the productions he did. Let's just do Back in Black, you know, because why not? It's the greatest sounding rock record ever, probably. So it's tough because it takes certain kinds of players to be able to pull that off, you know, like even with us, you know, I pretty much just do one pedal into an 800, but it's a totally different thing because how you play to the drums and how the drums are played, it matters so much, you know, especially I feel like nowadays, it's tough because you have this standard that's been set by modern recording and by modern metal and everything that it's that, you know, compressed, totally quantized thing where everybody sounds perfect. But when you know, the amps are overdriven to hell and all that stuff, you lose a lot of that, the performance, I think. Like you lose a lot of the X's and O's of the rhythm playing, you know, like when you listen to AC/DC and Slayer and stuff and how they're landing on the snare and the kick. And I mean, sometimes it might not be perfect. Like maybe there's a flub or whatever you'd want to call it, but it does give it character. But I think in this day and age, it's harder and harder to kind of set the boundaries for how loose you want to be, because not everybody understands that, you know, like us three talking about it. Like we love that part about those records as how they're being played and everything, and that just cleaner guitars and everything. But nowadays I think there's some people that would hear a band trying that now and go, these guys just aren't that tight, or they're not as good. And it's because that's sort of been wiped away from the current landscape. So it's tough, you know.
Something you said a second ago, I wanted to comment on just real quick, because we're basically talking about, you can talk about it like as songwriting, which we have kind of covered already, but not necessarily as much as a technique that some players have. You said like how you stop on the snare, like when there's a part that's coming towards, you know, you're tagging something and you're at the end of it, it's where you mute, like, you know, you know, for that moment of like, you know, that you know what I'm talking about. It's where you're muting your guitars and your everything, a cymbal choke or whatever, as to where, do I let the cymbal ring out? Do you guys just like don't entirely mute, maybe one guitar mute. That sounds like I'm creating this natural sloppiness. It's not sloppiness because everyone's tight as shit on the beat, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if everyone goes through and does like a choke, that
Yeah.
adds this entire whole new, like, oh my God, to the fucking song.
Yeah.
Unless you're coming down, you know, like a swan dive.
Mm-hmm.
The opposite of the swan dive would be do the cymbal choke and everyone mute on the last beat. That is like a thing that a lot of people don't realize. And I'm not pointing anybody out whether there's something, God, what's wrong with you? How dare, you know, because it just depends on what it is that you're trying to do.
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring up that obviously you guys are meticulous about things like that when you're writing a song.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to point that out. It's obvious that you guys are doing that too.
I think what we're all saying here in sort of a roundabout way is you know, for me, I think a lot of people connect emotion with the vocals. And I think what we're trying to say here is what Powertrip was able to capture is emotion in the playing. And that's where some of the rawness comes through. That, and maybe that's what it is that I like. It's sort of an intangible thing. You can't quite put your finger on it, but you know it when you hear it. And some of it's the music has personality and it has emotion. And some of it is just because it's recorded the way it is and played with the enthusiasm that it is. And that comes across, man, you know? And I think people hear it. I wanted to clarify something just a minute ago. Jason mentioned Andy Sneap. Andy's not involved on any of your
No.
Yeah, you had.
I assumed maybe that that comment was directed towards his production style.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, you know, he's obviously one of the greatest metal engineers or whatever. And his sound, I mean, that's the sound of a lot of modern metal, what he does, you know, he's the best at it. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's just, he's the best at it. I think there's a lot of bands that don't get to record with him that probably emulate his style that maybe don't do it quite as well. So maybe that's something that some people are turned off by, but I think Andy Sneap's awesome, you know. I would probably love to work with him one day because he seems like he can do different stuff, but I think he's really good at what he does. But I get where you're coming from. It's just a different sound. It doesn't work for every band, but there's plenty of metal bands out there that it is perfect for. And he does a really great job. So for us, who knows, you know, I mean, it is like a weird balance of how you want it to sound in the end of the day and what you do. Cause that totally like it does affect the final product and the vibe and everything. So maybe it will work. Maybe it won't, you know, who knows, but
I don't like the words modern and metal put together. I really don't.
Well, I guess when we're talking about all the stuff we were talking about earlier, the 80s and then now, you know, there's a stark difference. I think once you pass like 2000, you know, or something like that with digital recording and everything.
I was just poking fun, but I'm serious. I don't like the words modern and metal put together. But you can't, there's no denying that's where where we are. So
Powertrip, obviously, unfortunately, was a short-lived band. But man, the body of work you left behind, although it's small, was, I mean, just so well done and so impactful. I keep going back to the word impactful because it just generated a certain excitement, at least for me. And I'm not alone. You guys were very well received. Basically, took off in a relatively short amount of time. Had the respect of your peers, played all the massive festivals. So it's not just me saying that I love this record. There is an audience for it out there, and they were very vocal and approving of it. I wanted to ask you, as a young guy that was sort of on this upward trajectory and doing so well with the band, and playing some tours with some of your heroes and playing these festivals in front of massive audiences. What was the one moment where you sat there and caught yourself and went, "Oh my God, I can't believe this is happening"?
Well, there were a lot of really cool moments. I would say we played Download Festival in UK a few summers ago to about got to be 50,000 people or something. We played the main stage.
Minimum.
That was really cool. That whole summer we did a festival run. So we had never done that in Europe where we got to do all the festivals. So every day was a new festival, and you get to see cool bands, catering, and you're in a beautiful place in the summer. So that was a really great moment. I mean, there's been a lot of cool moments, just finding out people that are your heroes and that are, like your music or something. Like I remember, I think Rob Halford in an article was talking about us. I've heard Kirk Hammett, just people like that. Like, it's cool to hear that. Then you really feel like and then obviously the Grammy nom was cool. Just not really ever seeing that happening. And then, that kind of makes that all your distant relatives turn their heads and stuff too. So it's kind of, that was validating in a different way, but it's been a lot of cool moments. I hope there's more down the road.
Obviously, unfortunately, Riley passed away at the peak of your momentum. If I say so myself, I feel like you were on this upward trajectory. Again, when he passed, the outpouring of love from the metal community, and especially some of the biggest names in metal, sort of it made people understand how big and important Powertrip was. So I hate to dredge up bad memories, but where were you when you got the news, and how did the news spread through the band, and what were you guys left thinking when you found out that Riley was gone?
I was actually sitting right here, this desk. I mean, we actually found out probably an hour or two before everybody in the world did. So it was just really fast. 4 days later, I'm sitting in a pew, it was really tough. It was kind of, you're in shock. And then, for months, it was kind of like, what just happened? Because I think when you had the COVID thing, I mean, I hadn't seen him in probably 7 months or something, just COVID and, lockdown and just kind of living our own lives and stuff. I haven't seen him in a long time.
It's been tough times. It's been
I mean, I think
times, and when you lose your bro like that.
Yeah. I mean, that was like a brother to me, I mean, you spend, we started in 2008. So we'd been a band for at that point, like 12 years. So, it's like, these people almost better than your own family, because you spend so much time together. And we were like brothers. We were obviously close, but we worked together. We battled sometimes. We were like any brothers. You get in arguments, but at the end of the day, you're doing it for each other and you care about each other. And I mean, it's even a year and change later, I'm still just kind of like, staring at the ceiling sometimes, just like, what, life is, it's not fair. And, you just know that there's, you look back and you can't change it. And you got to just appreciate everything that you were able to do, and appreciate what they meant to your life. And, that'll never change, which, that kind of makes it easier for me, just being able to appreciate all that. And, just look at it for what it was. And, but at some point you do have to, I think for me, I have to kind of, I don't say put it behind you, but you have to try to look forward and see what you can do, given all that. And, for me, that's the only way that I feel like I'm really going to get to a point with everything and be able to swallow everything in a new way is to, take another step musically or whatever. And because right now I feel like I'm still sort of stewing in that. Just I haven't played a show since I think Valentine's Day 2 years ago was our last show in Bangkok, Thailand. So I mean, I just look at my amp and I play guitar and stuff, and been writing and recording stuff. But I don't think I'm really going to be able to turn that page maybe ever, but definitely not until I can be on a stage again and really kind of appreciate that in a different way. But yeah, tough doesn't begin to describe it, right. But this is life, and it's adversity is gonna hit you at some point. You got to learn how to handle it.
Some of the
I
things
appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, thank you for that, and we're sorry for your loss. It's so massive. Some of the things that you just mentioned, that's going to be also part of your grieving process. And I think that you know that. I think that when you get back into a situation where you're playing or you're full roar, or a version of that, that will start to be cathartic for you. Right until you play your next show.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, I think it would probably be like, when Metallica lost Cliff Burton, I mean, if they got that accident and then didn't play for 2 years, I mean, who knows what could happen, their momentum, or they're unable to get past that. I think being able to get out there and play again and write new music and kind of be able to honor Cliff in that way, and to grow his legacy, and to kind of continue the story, and not have a sad ending, The same with AC/DC, I mean, you think about situations like that, and it's like the way to change the way the story ends is to push it forward, and to kind of be able to celebrate that person. So
when you think
I would love to be able to do that too, because I don't see, at least for myself, and I think for a lot of people, I think there's a closure that's not there. Just the way that with COVID and everything, and the way, like you said, we were at sort of a peak. I think there was a lot of excitement about the next record, and just what we were gonna, things that we were able to do. I mean, we were really able, with our platform and kind of where we had gotten to, do some really amazing things, like we were able to, do charity things. We were able to put on a big festival in our hometown a couple of years in a row, and just invite our friends' bands. We were able to invite older bands, like we flew Carcass in, and, we brought Razor and Violence down, and we got to kind of bring together bands all over the spectrum in our subculture. And I think it was really cool. We were able to bring everybody together like that. And I feel like since, we've been around, I haven't felt that has been there in the same way, being able to, at least for me, I feel a little on the outside looking in, and like, I feel like what we were able to do was really important, for our community of bands and for the scene. And, I think there's a lot of people out there that would love for that to come back in some way. So,
I love your perspective on that. The way you said you have the power to change the ending of the story. That's pretty powerful. And
that's pretty heavy, right there.
I think, you've got a lot of miles ahead of you, and you will do that. So
there's hope. There's a lot of people hoping, and dare I say praying, if you pray, keep on doing it. But there's a lot of people, waiting patiently, because
rooting
it's
for you.
because it's love. That's what love is. So they're there for you.
I've heard a lot of that from people when I run into people, and no, I feel it too. I mean, I feel the same way. I think a lot of people are just, there's a loss that's even bigger than the loss that we had. It's kind of everything that, we represented at the same time. It's kind of like losing not only a person, an amazing person, but the band kind of too, in a way. We never officially broke up or anything. Call it a hiatus or whatever.
Sure. All of the great,
and I can't really,
all of the great things that you guys, you call them accomplishments or whatever, but all of the places you got to travel, the things you got to do, by just writing some rock and roll songs, just to put it blunt and in a, thimble. Your music took you there. This things that you created, this thing right here created that. Riley, your band, those things that you created something from nothing in a room, sweating your asses off, working really hard to create something from nothing. And that right there took you all over the globe, and you made a lot of people happy and smile and,
No, I mean,
that wanted more and more and more and more, but they're not, they're there patient waiting for you. So that's kind of important. All of those great things, they could be fleeting moments because it's precious, and you don't know what's going to happen, and you can't really expect everyone to understand what it is, where you're coming from. But you guys were accepted, and now you have this time to grieve. And AC/DC and Metallica, they didn't grieve, whether it was management and band deciding together that they were going to continue fucking immediately. They didn't have time to grieve. I feel like it affected the music. It affected the playing field for them as far as their career goes. All these grandiose things happened for them, but them as people had to be so many feelings that just didn't, that had Band-Aids on them. They were not healed. They were just fucking. So,
You
take your
used
time, dude.
You used the word hiatus, and I don't. I'm certainly not trying to be callous about this, but for the benefit of all your fans who are listening, I'm sure one of the obvious questions is, did you ever consider moving forward with a new singer? Is that possible? Was that a discussion that's been had, or is it safe to say that for now Powertrip is just going to stay, kind of in the background, and you guys are going to move on with other projects?
Oh no, we've had a lot of conversations about it. Definitely not moving on to other projects yet. We've all been living our lives, and COVID really just changed things a lot. I mean, for a lot of bands, I have, I know plenty of full-time bands that just started playing a few months ago. It definitely, I would say August seemed like when bands really started kind of gigging again. But so in that, you look at it that way, in that context, it really hasn't been that long. But it's just, there's this whole dark period where no one was doing anything. So I try to put that in perspective. I mean, we haven't really made any big decisions yet. We're all, like you said, we got stopped dead in our tracks in the middle of our things were just firing and going really well. And me as a, even just as a writer, feeling like I was really starting to figure things out in a different way, getting a new level of confidence, really, really liking the new stuff I'm writing and stuff. So it's just, I guess on one hand, we have had a lot of time and to process and make the right decision. We're still moving to that point. Can't say for certain what's going to happen, but we all love playing together, love the music we've written, love what we got to do. Really been able to appreciate that in a new way, not just, because of COVID and even just now, for me, I've been playing a band since I was probably 12 years old. So, not playing a show for 2 years is crazy for me. I feel like there's a piece of me that's missing. There's an emptiness for sure. And, I'm doing everything I can to get back out there. And I also, I know there's a lot of people out there that really want it too. People that are big fans of the band. I'm honored to be able to be a person that can provide something of value like that to someone. That's a special thing, and I miss that. Feeling like I was connected to a community, or just even the fans. Being able to play shows and make people happy, and that's special. I haven't been able to do that. I feel like I've lost a little piece of me with that too. So we're doing everything we can to do things the right way and to do something that's going to make everybody really excited. And I think on my end, I can say that I'm really confident about that. But we need some more pieces. We need some more pieces to fall into place. But I'm feeling optimistic, and I definitely know when people hear the music that is sitting kind of dormant right now, they're going to be really happy, and they'll think it was worth the wait. So
awesome.
I love
they'll definitely
awesome.
be into that. I think I'm confident about that. So.
Awesome. So never say never when it comes to Powertrip.
Definitely don't say never.
No,
Right.
you got good spirit, man. And I like it. I like what I'm hearing, and you are appreciated.
Yeah. So hey, let's lighten the mood a little bit. Yeah. Dash was going to join us. He's got a couple questions that he wants to ask Blake. So if you give me just a minute to shout upstairs, he's already set up, ready to hit that link, and I know he's really looking forward to this. And we'll kind of end on a light note with my son asking a few questions of one of his heroes. So give me just a second. Jerry can edit this out, and we'll make it seamless. Hold on just a second.
Yeah, it's awesome to meet you, Blake.
Yeah, you too, man. It's funny. I was telling him, we've been in the same place. I actually, the other band, Eternal Champion, we jammed with Rick.
Luca
from your band, yeah,
and old Watchtower drummer, yeah.
Yeah, we jammed with him in Austin years ago, just for an afternoon. I don't even really know how it was set. I think it was our bass player that knew him, but it was cool to say that we did that because he's an amazing drummer, and obviously I'm familiar with Watchtower. I'm a fan and everything, so it was really cool, and I'm glad we're finally meeting.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Here's our special co-host. This is my son Dash. Dash, meet Blake. You already know Jason, obviously.
Yeah.
Look at the backdrop he's created for himself.
Wow, look at that.
Awesome.
Wow. Officially the best hair has entered the room.
Yeah. Well, look at Dad. The hair dude doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah.
So his mom will appreciate that.
Some of you guys' products.
Yeah. Give me and Blake some hair tips, please.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I just woke up, flat ironed it. That's it.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, you've put more time into it than me and Blake have.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and thanks for that. I just want to bring up the birthday wish. That meant a lot. That was
no problem, man.
Awesome.
Well, I'm honored that anybody's a fan of anything that I do. I'm just a regular guy sitting here, and the fact that meant something to you is really special. So hope you had a good birthday, and any time, man. Yeah,
of course.
I'm sure we'll cross paths at some point. So
hopefully that'd be awesome.
Yeah, man.
I read in that birthday message too. You said you'd like to meet up at like a show sometime soon, and that made me wonder. Are you by any chance starting like any side projects or releasing any new music that the metal fans would like to know of?
No side projects right now. I want to do that. It's for me, I have kind of a one-track mind when it comes creatively. I feel like I have to sort of focus all my energy into one thing at a time. So definitely, I was telling them a few minutes ago, like there's a lot of new music. It's just kind of not really sure what's gonna happen with it, but it's awesome. And that's kind of what I've been working on the last 3 years maybe, and putting a lot of energy into, and I'm really excited about that. That kind of keeps me going. It's just kind of seeing what's going to happen with that. So that's all I really got right now. I'm not really doing anything else musically, unfortunately, but I might have to at some point.
Yeah.
I'm dying over here.
But, that's great. I'm
a show goer now. I just go and hang out, and I'm just a civilian these days. So if I see you at a show, we'll probably just be seeing the same show,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that obviously you enjoy all the heavy metal mostly, and you write all these catchy, heavy, fun riffs to play. But I also know that you really enjoy listening to the dreamy kind of pop stuff, just like Blur. And that made me wonder, are you what would you say your favorite artist would be in that particular dreamy pop like genre?
Well, I don't know if I'm like really just focused on that. I like bands that sound like that sometimes. I think at the end of the day, I just like good songs that are in the pop spectrum sometimes. I mean, when I say pop, I don't necessarily mean like Taylor Swift,
Right.
but
Yeah.
you know, like classic pop. So I mean,
Right.
I do like some of those bands like My Bloody Valentine and stuff that kind of took psychedelic rock in a new direction, and it was still had the harmonies and the melodies of stuff like the Byrds, and I love that stuff. Favorite band in the well, I guess if you're talking that, you can't beat My Bloody Valentine. They're the best to me,
Right.
with the dreamy thing. But I love a lot of stuff in that rock and pop, power pop, and all that. I like everything that comes from the family tree, the 60s and 70s stuff. It's just that's what I'm really into. I like hooks, I like melodies and harmony and all that. Anything coming from the Beatles.
Definitely.
So spanning over many decades. Yeah.
Right. And that brings me to another point. Like, since you like that kind of stuff, is there any other genre of music that would surprise like any fans of yours, like such as like country or reggae, stuff like that?
I don't know if there'd be any big surprises, honestly. I do feel like I'm getting to the point where I need to make a foray into a new genre, and you know, because I've started buying. I have a lot of the records that I want that aren't hundreds of dollars. So I kind of need to get my eyes opened up to something new. I'm really just a guitar guy. So I like rock and pop and metal and all that stuff. I think maybe I'll probably end up in soul at some point, because I feel like a lot of the bands I like were probably co-opting soul melodies and all that. So I feel like maybe that's on the horizon. Not a big country guy. I like some of the more country rock stuff maybe. So I like twang, but not super into country as we know it these days. And not really, you know, I wish I connected with some stuff that was more popular that a lot of people I know are into, but I just don't. So I don't know when that'll happen, but maybe never.
You're in the right place.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is by any chance, is there like any other hobbies that you like doing besides creating new music?
Let's see. I mean, I love sports. You know, I watch a lot of football. I watch basketball. Got a lot of buddies that love watching sports, so we watch a lot of sports. I exercise a lot. I like to ride my bike and go to the gym and run and stuff like that. Stay active. What else do I like? Yeah, buying records. I mentioned that.
Yeah.
You know, going to record stores. You know, food, coffee. I don't have a whole lot of other hobbies, but I need to get some new ones, because just have a lot of time to spend doing stuff. So, but yeah, those are the big ones. Probably just, you know, staying active, and I do like sports and anything that I can enjoy with buddies.
Yeah, I definitely for sure enjoy the whole, you know, vinyl collecting thing.
There you go.
I'm looking for that the live album. I haven't been able to.
Oh yeah, well that one
that'd be great to find.
Well, we don't. I think the live one, we just put it out online, so I don't think we didn't put anything out on physical yet for that. But we're trying to, but we're just stuff's just it's complicated.
Yeah,
we're trying to figure that all out right now. That'll come out on vinyl eventually. I think a lot of people want that to be on a physical format.
Yeah, so, that'd be great.
Yeah.
And this last question, it's kind of just for fun, because the other day I saw a video. It was I believe this was 2015. Yeah, 2015. And it was Powertrip in Paris. And apparently, from what I read, Riley didn't make his flight, and you had to take over vocals.
Yeah.
Which it was amazing, by the way. And so just what was going through your mind like 5 minutes before you had to walk out and just start screaming out the top of your lungs in front of all of these people?
What was going through my mind? I mean, I guess that we just had to do it, you know. It was funny because that show, the first show of the tour, was probably our biggest show of that run. I mean, that was kind of the tail end of our first record. And yeah, we just, you know, there were so many people that were there, and I don't think we knew what was going to happen. We didn't know he was going to make his flight until it was definitely close enough. So it was like, we can't cancel the show, you know? I think we did like 4 or 5 songs, and I was able to pull it off. I didn't really think about it. maybe that's the beauty of being younger, is you just got to do it, you know? Well, you know, Chris, our drummer, he's a pretty great singer, and he maybe could have done it, but he was playing drums. So it's like, that's probably a little more difficult to try to pull off. So I was just like, I'll do it. You know, someone's got to try to do it. I guess maybe I probably felt the most comfortable not really looking at what I'm playing and thinking about it. It's sort of, but I don't know. I guess I just raised my hand first. Like, yeah, I'll try to do it.
Right.
Nick probably could have done it too, but yeah, I guess I just was thinking he has to stop more when he's playing. So maybe it would make more sense for me just to do it, 'cause I'd sort of just continue playing the whole time. So I just had to do it. And I guess there's a video of it. I don't really know if it was good or not, but it was good enough to play the show, and for a lot of people that were there to enjoy it. And I would have been let down to have to cancel on all those people that were there. And, you know, and even at that point, you know, not playing a show is you're losing money, and it's like, if you can pull it off and make it happen, that's what's most important. So I'm glad we were able to do it, and it wasn't a total mess. I think we did all right. So, yeah, hopefully don't have to ever do that again. But I guess
it's a sign of a tight band. You know, it's a sign of a family when someone else can step up and just, oh, no problem, we've got this.
Yeah, it wasn't like, I mean, it was then. Did Newstead fill in on vocals one time for Metallica or something? I thought I remember hearing about that, like one show or some songs. He took over.
There's been shows where my bass player fell down. I just picked up the bass and finished the show. And you know, the promoters, that was in Japan. The promoters were like, what the hell just happened? You know, how does that, Jason just knows those songs? Well, no, but he's heard them so many times that he can get through it. You know, it's a sign of a family. It's amazing.
The show must go on, you know? Yes. I mean, if it was multiple days, and if it was, you know, well, and obviously even at the stage we're at now with more songs and different expectation, I don't know if we can pull up.
Where were you on the bill on that?
It was a headlining show. It was It was the first show of our European tour, and I think it was 2015 or something. And we flew into Paris, and he missed his flight, and he was able to get on another one not long after, but he was going to get in until I think the next day or something. And I want to say when we found out, it was kind of close. Well, I think we found out when we landed, maybe, because I think a lot of times when we go to the airport, we all just show up at the airport at different times and hop on the plane. We don't always go together. And so we were leaving from Dallas. So I think we didn't really know that he wasn't on the plane until we landed. And then we landed, I want to say, that day. So the show was already happening. You know, we were just like, we got to do this. I mean, I guess if no one had volunteered, maybe we would have canceled, but I was like, no, we're going to try to make this happen. Not start this tour out on a bad note. And it was such a big show too. It was like, would have lost, you know, a lot of money, not selling merch and not playing. And yeah, it also was Paris. It was a big show. We wanted to do something. So it worked out. We made it happen.
And the promoters were cool with that.
Yeah, they were like, hey, I mean, it's either that or we have to cancel, everybody goes home.
Well, that would have caused riots. You don't want that.
Yeah, it would, you know, we didn't want to have to do that. I mean, I guess if they were like, nope, that's not going to work, then it wouldn't have worked. But we still were able to play at most of, I would say probably 3/4 of the set or something like that. So we're still able to do something, you know, and people came to our show, just wanted to mosh, and, you know, so it was cool. We hadn't been to Europe, I think, at that point in 2 or 3 years. So we're excited. Yeah.
I wanted to tell people listening, if you haven't seen correct me if I'm wrong, Blake, the show, I think it's called House of Strombo, where Powertrip plays at Strombo's house. And if you haven't seen it on YouTube, look it up. It's amazing. It's like, it reminds me of like an old school kegger, where people just show up at a house and they all cram into the living room and a band is set up and they play, and it's Powertrip. And Riley's intro was priceless. He said, thank you all for being here. All I know is I'm glad that for the next 15 minutes, this isn't my house. and the place goes bonkers. And there's like a mosh pit in the kitchen. And it was really, really cool. And it's only like 15 minutes long or something like that. So Anyone listening out here that hasn't seen that, check it out. House of Strombo with Powertrip playing in a house. It was really cool.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a good time. It was definitely interesting because you set up in a living room, and it sounded all right. I mean, it wasn't actually too hard to hear anything, and the environment's weird because you kind of have people standing, and it is like you're at like a house party. And we played house shows in the early days. We definitely did some house shows, so it was sort of like going back to that. But it was cool and just kind of a fun thing to do. And George is really, really cool. Always been the vocal supporter of the band. And even in that house, some of the other people that have played there, it was like, I think a couple of weeks before we were there, it was like, who was there? Elvis Costello or Neil Young or someone just like, what, or Jerry Cantrell. People are just like, they were here. So
yeah,
it's cool. There's always cool moments like that when you're like, oh, we're in the same place that this guy was sitting a couple weeks ago. Or that's one thing I loved about, touring all the time and playing and doing festivals. And cause you'd cross paths with, your heroes and artists you love. For me, I loved crossing paths at festivals with bands that didn't sound like us, that I'm really into, rock bands and just people that you wouldn't necessarily run into unless you're in that situation. So that's what's cool about some of those things you can do is getting to
Can you tell us maybe about one of those where you kind of fanboyed out on someone maybe?
Oh man, yeah. There's definitely been some moments like that. I try not
guilty of it.
From
I try not to
experience,
fanboy.
I know those situations well. I'm like literally hopping up and down and speechless sometimes. So.
I know. I'm trying to think. There's definitely a few, and I'm trying to remember what the best ones were because it's been a while. I'm looking around at my record collection, trying to think. There's been a handful. We played a fest with Cheap Trick a few years ago, and I was hanging out backstage kind of near Rick Nielsen and Robin Zander. And I don't don't think I really talked to him. I think I tried to, and it sort of didn't work. And I was like embarrassed. I just gave up and like walked away. But I was in their midst, so that was cool. I'm trying to think of anybody else. There's been some good ones. We've kind of run into people. I'm trying to think like the craziest ones. There's definitely been some times. I try not to be too much of a punisher, as they say. You know what a punisher is when, you kind of get into a situation with someone that you want to fanboy on and you sort of biff it and it's embarrassing and awkward because it is an awkward thing for them and for you. Cause that's, they're like, they don't know what to say. You don't know what to say. You think about like, if you met your favorite actor, what would you talk about? It's like, hey, you're really good. I love your movies. And then it kind of ends there, but so sometimes you got to pick your spots. But most of the time people are cool. Most of the time, if you keep it brief and you just say, then they're cool. I don't know about now because of COVID and everything. Maybe people are weird. Hey, don't come near me.
Right.
Get your mask. But, there's been a handful. I can't, I'm kind of drawing a blank on them, but
you had a Cheap Trick one. That's good.
Yeah,
that's
one of the more recent ones I can remember is probably the Cheap Trick one. That's a good one.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, Blake, I wanted to thank you for being with us today and allowing my son to join us. This is a first. He's never been on the podcast, but you're one of his heroes. And I thought if you were cool enough to make this happen, we'd appreciate it. And I know that Dash appreciates it. We appreciate it. I especially appreciate your honesty and your candor on some of the more difficult subjects we hit on today. And I want to thank you for a great catalog of music. Oh, my God. Nightmare Logic, if anyone listening out there that hasn't heard it, you owe yourself a favor. Go find that record. And Manifest Decimation is great, too. So anything with Powertrip logo is worth your time. So I wanted to thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have you. We appreciate you spending time with us. On behalf of my co-host, Jason McMaster, I'm Metal Dave, along with our special guest co-host, Dash Glessner, and our featured guest, Blake Ibanez from Powertrip. Thank you all for listening to another episode.
Thank you guys for having me, and thank you, Dash. Thanks, everybody. It's an honor to be asked to be on any podcast, and I'm honored that you guys wanted to even talk about all this stuff that I've done, or the band and everything. So thank you guys, and thanks, Dash. Appreciate you guys having me.